Three camper vans, same highway, same checkpoint in Nevada. All three owners thought they were legal. None of them were. Here's what's actually happening on American and European roads right now, and why the camper van you're researching might already be a liability before you drive it off the lot. This isn't scare content. This is what dealers won't walk you through at the showroom because the conversation kills sales. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which compliance issues are triggering police stops in 2026, which van platforms carry the most risk, which modifications are now federally flagged, and how smart buyers are using this information to negotiate better deals and avoid five-figure mistakes. Let's get into it. Part 1. The enforcement shift nobody warned you about. For years, camper life existed in a kind of gray zone. Law enforcement didn't have a consistent framework for what a camper van was, what rules applied, and whose jurisdiction covered what. That gray zone is closing fast. In 2025, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration updated its guidance on vehicle classification. More importantly, several states, including California, Colorado, Texas, and Florida, began coordinated operations targeting what they now call non-compliant recreational vehicles. That phrase sounds bureaucratic. The consequences aren't. A non-compliant recreational vehicle in 2026 means your van is subject to commercial vehicle weight inspections even if it's registered as a personal vehicle. It means your gray water system triggers a fine under EPA disposal regulations. It means your roof raise, your custom solar mount, or your aftermarket suspension is flagged as an unauthorized structural modification. And here's the number that matters. The average roadside fine for gray water violations in California now is $875 for a first offense. In some Colorado jurisdictions, structural modification flags can trigger a mandatory vehicle inspection that runs $400 before you even address the issue. Picture this. You've planned a 6-week retirement trip across 4 states. First checkpoint in California. The inspector walks around your van for 4 minutes, asks for gray water documentation you don't have, and your trip stops right there, day 1. That's not a hypothetical. That's a Tuesday on Highway 50 right now. This isn't happening to people who cut corners. It's happening to buyers who did everything right, bought from a reputable dealer, paid full price, drove off the lot thinking they were legal. The problem starts earlier than the purchase. It starts with what you're buying. Part 2. The van platforms that draw scrutiny and why. Not all camper vans are equal in the eyes of law enforcement and vehicle inspectors. The platform matters, the conversion quality matters, and the paperwork matters more than most buyers realize. The Mercedes Sprinter-based conversions from brands like Winnebago Revel, Airstream Interstate, and Pleasureway Plateau sit in a relatively protected position. The Sprinter's GWVR ratings are well documented, the chassis is classified cleanly, and factory-finished conversions from established brands carry Rec V certifications that hold up at checkpoints. That certification is called RVIA, Recreational Vehicle Industry Association, and it's a paper shield that most buyers don't ask about. Ask your dealer if your van carries RVIA certification before you sign anything. If they hesitate, that's information. The Ford Transit-based conversions present a more complicated picture. The Transit is the most popular base platform for independent converters, smaller shops, individual builders, and the custom van market. That flexibility is the appeal. It's also the risk. A Transit conversion from a small builder almost certainly lacks RVIA certification. That doesn't make it illegal. It does make it more exposed at a stop. The Ram ProMaster is the most vulnerable platform in this conversation. The ProMaster has a front-wheel drive layout that affects how weight is distributed when you add a full interior build, water tanks, lithium battery banks, kitchen blocks. That weight distribution mismatch has led to a pattern of overloading violations at weigh stations in states that have expanded recreational vehicle inspection programs. Winnebago Solus owners, that's a ProMaster-based van, have reported exactly this issue after adding aftermarket gear. And the Pleasureway Tofino, also built on the ProMaster 1500 chassis, sits in the same exposure category, despite its premium positioning and price point. The VW California and Fiat Ducato conversions face a different set of problems that are specifically relevant to European buyers and Americans importing gray market vehicles. That's a whole separate legal risk I'll come back to. Here's the brutal truth about platform selection that no one frames this way. The platform isn't just about driving feel or interior space, it's about the legal architecture you're buying into. A cheap conversion on a ProMaster might look like a deal at $68,000. After one waystation flag, a required professional rebalancing, and updated registration paperwork, you've erased that price advantage entirely. Here's the insight that's going to annoy some people. A factory-built luxury van from Airstream or Leisure Travel Vans is legally safer than most DIY DIY builds, even when the DIY build looks better on Instagram. The irony of the van life content world is that the aesthetic winners are frequently the compliance losers. A $140,000 factory interstate with full RVIA certification will sail through a checkpoint that stops a $65,000 custom transit cold. Price does not protect you, certification does. Buy the platform, not the build. The aesthetics never.
Part 3. The modification problem. What's legal changed. This is where the enforcement story gets personal for buyers who are planning to customize. The van you buy today might be fully legal. The modifications you add in the first 6 months might make it illegal and retroactively expose you to fines on every mile you drove since the modification. In 2024, the NHTSA issued updated guidance on aftermarket structural modifications to passenger and recreational vehicles. The practical effect: roof raises, pop-top installations, and frame-mounted solar arrays on vans that weren't originally sold with those features now require engineering certification in 13 states. That includes California, New York, Washington. And here's what most buyers don't realize. This isn't a new law, it's new enforcement of an existing framework. The rule was always there, the inspectors just weren't looking. Now they are. If you drive a Transit with a third-party pop-top through a California DOT checkpoint in 2026 and you don't have a PE-stamped engineering certificate for that modification, you can be cited under Vehicle Code 27150 for unsafe equipment. The fine starts at $197. The bureaucratic process to clear it costs multiples of that. Now here's the part nobody saw coming. The lithium battery system is the new target. Not the engine, not the suspension, the battery bank. Specifically, undersized or improperly grounded lithium installations. Fire incidents involving lithium battery banks in campervans have increased year over year since 2022. Insurers flagged this, then regulators noticed. Several states now include lithium system spot checks as part of recreational vehicle safety inspections, which means this is your reality. You've driven 11 hours, you're 40 minutes from the campsite. An inspector waves you into secondary screening, looks at your aftermarket lithium bank, asks for installation certification you don't have, and your van doesn't move again until it's evaluated. That hold can run 24 to 72 hours. Your trip doesn't pause, it ends. Smart buyers are now requesting documentation on the electrical system before purchase, not just the spec sheet, but the installation certification. Factory builds from Class B manufacturers like Airstream, Leisure Travel Vans, and Heimer include this documentation as standard. Conversion vans from smaller builders frequently don't. That documentation gap is the difference between driving through a checkpoint and being held at one. Part 4. The European dimension, and why it matters for American buyers. Here's the insight most American-focused channels skip entirely. European emission standards are now affecting American buyers in a direct, practical way, not as future policy, but as present purchasing reality. Consider this first. The average new campervan in 2026 costs more than the average American household earns in an entire year. You are making a six-figure financial decision inside a regulatory environment that most buyers don't understand and most dealers won't explain. That combination is where serious money gets lost.
The Fiat Ducato is the base platform for dozens of European Class B and C conversions. Brands like Adria, Detlefs, and Corrado build on it extensively. The current Ducato production spec is Euro 6D compliant. Meanwhile, the Hymer Grand Canyon S runs on a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter chassis, Euro VIE rated. That distinction matters at emissions checkpoints because neither standard maps cleanly onto EPA equivalency in every U.S. state. American buyers purchasing gray market European campervans, and this market has exploded since 2022, are bringing vehicles into states that don't recognize Euro 6D or VIE equivalency with EPA standards. The result, gray market imports are failing California emissions testing at the registration stage. Buyers are discovering this after completing the import process, after paying $4,000 to $9,000 in import and compliance fees, and after waiting 4 to 6 months for delivery. Some of them cannot register the vehicle in their home state at all without a $15,000 plus emissions conversion. That $95,000 European dream build? In some states, it's one emissions test away from becoming a very expensive storage unit you can't legally drive. This is not an edge case. Vanlife forums are full of this story right now. For European buyers, specifically UK post-Brexit, German, and Scandinavian buyers, the compliance picture runs the other direction. Left-hand drive conversions re-entering right-hand drive markets face increased lane position enforcement scrutiny. It's not a ban, it's a systematic disadvantage that creates incident exposure on motorways. The VW California, beloved in European market, is now running into a different wall. Its MSRP in 2026 is sitting above 60,000 euros in most European markets, which puts it in a segment where buyers are demanding factory warranty documentation on electrical systems and appliances. VW is struggling to deliver consistent documentation packages in the mid-conversion tier. Smart European buyers are demanding complete handover documentation before final payment. Many dealers aren't ready for that conversation.
Part 5. The insurance gap nobody explains at the dealership. This section will cost you money if you skip it. Standard auto insurance does not cover a campervan the way you think it does. This is one of the most expensive misconceptions in the van buying market. If your van is classified as an RV or recreational vehicle, which most campervans are, your auto policy's liability coverage may not extend to the van's contents, the built-in appliances, or any injuries that occur inside the vehicle while it's stationary. That last point is critical for full-time van lifers. An accident while parked, someone tripping on your slide-out steps, a propane incident, a water damage event, falls into a classification gap that standard auto insurers deny routinely. The claim goes through, the adjuster reviews the vehicle classification, and the denial letter arrives 6 weeks later. Specialty RV insurance from providers like National General, Progressive RV, or Good Sam covers these scenarios explicitly. The premium difference between a standard auto policy and a proper RV policy on a $90,000 campervan is roughly $400 to $700 per year. The difference in coverage in a real incident is potentially $40,000. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between a bad week and a financial crisis for $50 a month. Buyers who close without verifying their insurance classification are not saving money, they're delaying a loss. Here's the controversial part. Some dealers actively avoid this conversation because it slows the closing process. Informed buyers start asking about compliance, certification, and insurance documentation, and that slows a deal. When your sales rep pivots away from documentation questions toward a test drive, you now know why. This is where amateurs lose money. Part 6. What smart buyers are doing differently in 2026. There's a version of this market where you buy clean, buy protected, and drive without exposure. Here's what that actually looks like. First, RVIA certification is the baseline, non-negotiable. Factory-finished conversions from Winnebago, Airstream, Leisure Travel Vans, and Thor brand manufacturers carry this.
Most independent converters don't. If you're buying a conversion van, you either get the certification retroactively processed, which is possible but expensive, or you accept the legal exposure. Second, request the weight distribution sheet. Any reputable dealer on a ProMaster or Transit conversion should be able to provide a loaded weight calculation showing that the van's GVWR isn't exceeded by a full interior build plus 2 passengers plus gear. If they can't produce this, walk. Third, electrical documentation matters now. Factory lithium installs come with BMS specs and installation certificates. If a conversion van's electrical spec sheet is a single page of marketing language, that's a red flag. Fourth, match your insurance policy to your use case before you take delivery, not after. Call your insurer with the VIN and ask specifically whether the vehicle is covered as an RV or a personal vehicle and what the classification gap is for stationary incidents. Get that in writing. Fifth, if you're a European buyer considering a gray market American import or an American considering a European gray market import, get independent legal advice on registration compliance in your home state or country before you start the import process. The cost of that advice is $300. The cost of discovering a registration problem post-import is 5 figures.
Conclusion? The honest take. Here's the truth about this market right now. The enforcement environment around campervans has changed materially in the last 18 months. It's not going back. Regulators are not relaxing gray water standards. States are not removing structural modification requirements. The lithium inspection trend is accelerating, not fading. This is not a reason to avoid buying a campervan. It is a reason to buy the right one, with the right documentation, with the right insurance, from a seller who can answer hard questions without deflecting to the cup holder storage. The buyers who are getting pulled over, getting fined, and getting stuck at weigh stations in 2026 are not unlucky. They bought without asking the right questions. They prioritized aesthetics and price over a compliance architecture. They are now paying, literally, for that decision. The buyers who drive clean are the ones who treated this purchase like the $80,000 to $150,000 asset it is. They asked for documentation. They pushed back on incomplete answers. They matched their van choice to their actual legal and logistical context. Smart buyers do this differently. If you're in the research phase right now, the single best thing you can do is watch my video on pre-purchase inspection checklists for campervans. The link is in the description. That video covers the exact documentation checklist I'd use if I were buying today. And tell me in the comments, has your dealer ever walked you through RVIA certification unprompted? Because I want to know how common that actually is. Most buyers I hear from say no. Let's find out. In 2026, the most dangerous thing you can buy isn't a bad campervan. It's a beautiful one with missing paperwork.